Good morning, everybody, and happy Memorial Day. I am excited to talk about type 5 and relationships. And type 5 is really, I've worked specifically with type 5s before, and they are just, to me, a joy to work with. And maybe that's because I have like this intellectual side. So in therapy, they really love talking about the why of things and understanding the science behind things. And even in general life and in their relationships, they do like facts. They like learning. They like understanding things from an objective perspective. They like to observe and take things in. Now, the ways I've seen this be problematic in relationships or come up in relationships is that they don't tend to be very socially or emotionally responsive to certain things. So I've seen the type 5 be in a relationship with someone else where, their partner will say things like, why can't you be excited about this thing? Or, why is it always just this, we're talking about the facts and we're not getting into like how fun it is or the emotional depth of it, because 5s have a hard time getting like super excited about things, but they also tend to not go into the low lows either. They're very analytical. They like to talk about the like meat of things. And so small talk can feel kind of fruitless to them, or it can be kind of like a foreign language to them almost, or just doesn't seem very helpful. And so 5s typically are not going to be the people that are like, hey, let's go to this big party or this big event and socialize it up, because they like to talk about the meat of things and they don't want to do small talk and they don't want to just make friends just for the experience of making friends necessarily. Now, this doesn't mean that they don't want deep connection. It just means that the ways that they find most helpful to connect tend to be through the scientific things or through learning and understanding things. Now, another side of this that I've seen play out in therapy as well is that 5s can tend to see other people as being kind of, I feel like I wish I had a better way of saying this, but the best way I can frame it is, and the way that I've heard it stated is seeing people as stupid or seeing people as dumb. And so they definitely need a partner that can challenge them on that, and that they can see as their intellectual equal. Because, again, often if people are not on the same page as they are about things, or they're not interested in learning or being as book smart or getting into the meat of things, their way of writing people off, or honestly, their way of not really dealing with their inability to emotionally connect with people, is calling them dumb. Like, that's kind of the story they can create at times. And so 5s have to be careful to not write people off as being dumb if they don't see the world in the same way that they do. And they do have to challenge themselves to learn how to emotionally connect and the value of emotionally connecting with other people instead of just being the observer and keeping things to themselves. Now, intimacy-wise too, it is going to be important for the 5 to find ways to emotionally connect with their partner, because often they can kind of keep things inside without sharing them, not because they're intending to keep things a secret or anything, but just because it is not natural for them to go deep on emotional topics or to talk about them. And so it's going to be important that they have a partner that is able to connect with them in different ways, but also respect when they don't want to go there, and give them room and space to be in their own analytical space as well. If you're a partner of a 5, it's also important that you do not become offended when in arguments or fights, if they kind of just like either shut down or just go and think about things and come back to it. Often 5s don't want to engage in emotional disputes. And so if they see their partner as being like overly emotional in the moment, they will kind of just disengage from the argument. And that can be very frustrating to their partners, because they're just like, hello, be in this fight with me. Let's have this conversation. And the 5's like, nope, I would rather us just talk about this when we're not as emotional, which can be a bonus or a benefit. But the 5 has to work on not avoiding these things and just sweeping things under the rug, because if they had it their way, they'd be like, well, let's just not really talk about this topic and move along, which isn't good in a relationship long term. So The beauty of the 5 is that they are able to keep things real and bring people back to logic when needed. They are able to bring that left-sided brain into the equation. They're problem solvers. They tend to be very handy and efficient partners, and we can rely on them for helping us with that information. And yeah, they can be good communicators about information and information gatherers. So a 5 is definitely a person who will figure out how to do things and get it done. They're not going to sit around and wait for someone else to do it for them. So in most areas. Now, that's not saying that some 5s can have areas that they're like, well, I don't find this valuable doing, so they don't figure out how to do it. But the things that they do value and they want to figure out, they definitely can. And they're just such a resource of knowledge, and they're good at being observers, which can lead to them being good listeners in the relationship as well, if they utilize that skill towards the relationship. With all of these different types, I do think that the 5 and people who are coupled with the 5, do their best to support the 5 in anything creative or any emotional expression they do have. So if they do express emotions, don't overreact to that. Just let it be. Because again, that's kind of a vulnerable thing for them and hard for them to do. 5s can integrate, and I think the best way to do that is to become more emotionally aware of their own experience and find the value of connecting with others in their emotional experiences. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, being partnered with a 5 can be a beautiful thing. I've worked with 5s before, and they are so fun. They are so witty and educated, and I think if you're trying to explain something to them, definitely try to speak to their logic, because that is where they feel comfortable. That is their language. All right, y'all, I hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day if you're out with family and friends. I know it's a little different this year. Things are kind of weird, but I do hope you have a really awesome day and enjoy it with whoever you're around. I'm going to be at the office with my doggy doing some work, and I will catch you guys tomorrow to talk about type 6.